I don't want to be overly dramatic, but I think I will use the word doomed in the long term.
被封为新债券天王的冈雷克语出惊人，但知名经济学家罗奇也警告，美元地位确实受到挑战。
I tend to think that nothing could ever dislodge the dollar from this preeminent status as the world's currency. That view is overblown and ultimately will be challenged.
70年代，美元在全球外汇存底的占比超过80%，到了2021年第四季，美元在全球外汇储备的占比却只剩下58%，创下25年来的新低。也难怪经济学家开始质疑美元是不是风光不再。
Renminbi started playing a role as a reserve currency just a few years ago, and it accounts for a relatively modest share, less than 3% of global foreign exchange reserves, but it's been chipping away very modestly at the dollar's role. Plus, there are other reserve currencies, including the Japanese yen, the British pound sterling, but even some of the smaller reserve currencies, such as the Canadian dollar and the Australian dollar, that have all gained marginally in terms of their shares.
这几个月来受到俄乌战火影响，虽然美元不断攀升，但专家认为美元走势可能已经到顶。由于持续的量化宽松政策，2021年第四季美国经常账赤字就高达2179亿美元，相当于美国 GDP 的3.6%，美元难以避免贬值的命运。
The US dollar ought to be under threat. After all, the US government has been running massive deficits for a long time, which should in principle be reflected in high inflation, which in turn should reduce the dollar's value and the dollar's role as an international currency.
虽然美元走跌有助于出口贸易，但恐怕影响外资入驻，冲击到美国经济，全球商品市场也会连带受到影响。
Most commodities are priced in dollars, and if the dollar were to go down, that would certainly have a significant impact on commodity prices around the world.
美元打喷嚏，全球都会跟着一起感冒。专家担心汇率波动影响到的层面可能比想象中来得大。
Anytime you have turmoil in US financial markets, that is going to spill over to the rest of the world. The same is going to be true of the US dollar, because after all, when the US dollar depreciates, it has to depreciate against the other currencies of the world. And that would hurt those economies because many of them, including the Eurozone, China, Japan, they rely a great deal on exports for economic growth.
中国大陆、俄罗斯等国家这几年来都积极去美元化，就是要避免经济受到波动。但目前找到能取代美元的强势货币并不容易，短期内美元霸权还是难以动摇。
When you think about what's required to have the world's reserve currency, it needs to be freely convertible. China's currency is not. They have capital controls. You need an independent central bank. You need large and liquid debt markets. Europe certainly is a large economy, but their debt markets are somewhat fragmented because it's a combination of different countries.
即使是在40年来最高的通膨比率之下，美元货币指数跟疫情前并没有太大的差别，显示目前美元市场还是相对安全，但预料各国还是会分散风险，避免美元汇率波动造成冲击。专家也呼吁美国金融管理机构应该承担货币霸权国的责任，不能大量指债，靠着空心化的美元来维持市场的热度，否则将造成严重的浩劫。TVBS 新闻综合报道。
请支持一个专门报道国际新闻的全新 YouTube 频道 TVBS 国际 Plus， 扩大视野，掌握趋势，请订阅并开启通知小铃铛。